All right, thank you everyone for joining. This is an extra session we're holding for VOLTA discussion, specifically on JIRA issues VOL 460 and VOL 419. So I think, Chip, likely I should first hand it over to you. It sounded like you may have some updates to give to the group. I'll let you kick off the discussion if you would like to.
Okay. Well, on 460, I agree that we need a common way to provide CVID values to VOLTA. That's, through hopefully a standard model or something that could be associated with the standard model. And I gave a couple suggestions in the email. One's the IETF augment of the IETF interfaces for VLANs, and I believe Broadband Forum has a sub interfaces model, but just on a cursory look, the IETF looked a little bit simpler. But I guess until we actually implement a northbound netconf interface, as long as the models are somewhat closer to provide what we can have, would be worthwhile. Like I mentioned earlier, also, we were trying to, and one of the main reasons for the CVID value is that as the flow decomposer will install some default rules on the ONU to handle the untagged and tag, priority tagged to CVID and vice versa when an ONU is added. So with the introduction of XPON in the old style, what I typically call legacy, we called the add child device, and the desire is to deprecate that and move to XPON. And in that call, they were setting a VLAN parameter, and often that VLAN parameter was equal to the channel ID, which was equal to OpenFlow port number. So that call is not being made, and it's the adding of the ONU is done by the XPON agent, and they don't provide that VLAN ID, and I probably don't think they probably should, unless a new method is better to do it there. One way this can be done is to provide that CVID value is that upon startup of an ONU, it can actually, the ONU is responsible for setting its logical port ID. So if it knows what its logical port ID is, it could also use that value to set the device VLAN value on its side and provide the CVID. And that's what I'm about to test right now. And that's a temporary workaround. I don't think it should be a long-term fix.
So Chip, I have one question here, just to understand, because I think people have been using that CVID in different ways, but I believe in your particular case, from what you mentioned right now, you need the CVID because it's used for the default floor rules for untagged and party tagged at the ONU. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we can separate out control traffic coming up.
Okay. So I can understand why you would need that, because I know that some ONUs are not able to send anything but tag traffic on the PON, and you'd need some sort of a tag to get any traffic up on the PON. And so my question here is, do you need that CVID to be a unique CVID, like a subscriber VLAN ID, or is it okay if we had some sort of a one CVID for all the ONUs, which is only used to trap the packets to the controller, and once owners is happy and authenticated and then puts the real flow rules down for the subscribers, then you don't really need that anymore. Is that something, is that a solution that would work for you? Because then we could provide some sort of a workaround or a interim solution for you to get ahead with that.
Yeah, we require a unique. Right now, we use the Control 4000 VLAN method that existed from the start of VOLTA, and we're currently implementing in our Qumran driver the capability to do native packet in out, but that's going to be a little bit a while. So right now, we need the the VLAN coming up from the ONU to be unique on the OLT device. Once we can do the native packing in and out, we only need it to be unique on a PON.
And that's the part I'm trying to understand. Why would you need it to be unique? Don't you use gem-port IDs on VLANs to classify a particular flow?
Yes, but I'm not certain we're going to be able to reclaim that because of the way currently the driver works. We may be able to at some point, but I can't make that promise.
Okay.
And also, there might be others that can do 4000 method.
Okay. So I'm just trying to understand. So it's more of a some work that you have to do on the driver to get there, and you're not there right now. So what I'm trying to understand is it something that you know, is not going to work at all, or is it not going to work because of the current implementation? Because I mean, from what I see, I totally understand that some ONUs, and we have to cater to all these ONUs, will not be able to send anything but tag packets on the PON, and we need some sort of a way to get these packets up to the controller even before the subscriber flow rules are pushed down to the device. And that's why I was saying, maybe can we come up with a case to configure a bootstrap VLAN or a trap VLAN, which we could do. We could actually do it in XPON agent if we had a way to configure it, or we could also try to take baby steps towards that. If you want, we could, if you all agree on a VLAN, we could put that VLAN in first and then go towards a configurable VLAN as well. So that's something we could look at.
Yeah. Well, actually, the workaround, and I'm pretty much about to test it, where the ONU actually provides that VLAN value. That would be a possible workaround for us. We would have to be careful to, as we do ONUs across multiple PONs, to keep that unique, but that could be our issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope in the future, as the Qumran developers provide us more details on if we can actually pull it off, get the gem-port ID that we use between the FPGA and Qumran that we have. If we recover that, we won't need a VLAN, but I'm not sure about other vendors.
But I mean, even the gem-port's not going to be unique between PON ports, right? I mean,
no. Within the PON, we don't have a problem across PONs, right?
Yeah, I can pretty much. I think we can pretty much almost guarantee that I can know what PON a packet comes in on.
Right.
And therefore, that with the VLAN or that with the gem-port might be sufficient for us. But I don't want to speak for Calyx or Tibet or other vendors. So
right. I'm just talking with respect to, for example, WT356 or even the WT385. This is an existing model. We are not reinventing the model, right? GPON has been there for several years, and that's how it works, that you can uniquely identify a UNI on a port using a gem port on the PON, and VLAN is just needed for identifying the flow on top of it. So if you're, from what I'm hearing, if you want to know which ONU it is or which UNI it is, then the gem port information should be sufficient. And that's why I kept insisting or suggesting for a long time to move towards using VNet port as the open flow port, because that gives you all that information. And I know that we've had some calls with Redis as well, and they've used that for the edge core adapter too, because again, edge core adapter also doesn't use the frame IO method. They use a packet in, packet out, similar to the packet in, packet out. They use RPCs, which is sort of similar to what we do as well. So in that case, we have absolutely no limitation. We are able to find out exactly what port the packet came in on and process it. So it's almost like, that's why I'm trying to understand, should we move towards something that would work long term without any workarounds? I mean, and at the same time, I'd like to see what we can do to help you to get to your testing as well. And that's why I'm asking, if you need something to be populated in maybe XPON, we could look at it. But if you're really saying that it has to be one unique CVID per ONU, then it completely defeats the status configuration and also, the
Yeah.
ONU configuration.
In the short term, I think we can probably get by of just having the CV LAN being unique on a PON, and just be careful with our configuration on how we bring up ONUs. That might be a little bit restrictive on our part, but we do need that CV LAN value currently as we're pretty much almost using XPON completely.
Mm-hmm.
Our configuration, and if this one workaround does work, that would be great for us. We'll still have that multi-PON restriction of dealing values. The other thing we need is the 419 changes to fix the wildcard input port rules.
So what are you populating as the port in the graph? Are you still using PON port, or are you moving towards using VNet port?
Currently, we're using just the PON port.
Okay.
And that's just basically because of how our device adapter was developed with what was available at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And switching over to VNet, I mean, we're in the lab right now, so a major refactoring of that point would be very disruptive.
Okay, because if you were to move,
we're in the same boat as well. We're still using PON port, but I suppose moving to VNet is maybe the way forward.
And I think the VNet may still also need the fix for the router port rules.
Yes, VNet needs the fix for multiple ports on a single device. The device at that time becomes the ONU device and not the OLT device, and so the problem to solve would be 2 UNI ports on the same ONU, which is what we are trying to look at as well. I mean, trying to solve, and we're trying to see if 419 would solve it, and unfortunately it does not, because 419 completely relies on that CV LAN, and that's where I'm trying to see if we do take 419, how close is it towards moving towards a solution that will work for all the adapters, right? Or is it going to only work for adapters that use PON as the graph port, right? If the long-term solution, I feel, and you can comment if you think it's wrong, is to move towards VUnit. And I understand that it may be a lot of refactoring for you right now, but if you do take 419, I want to see how that will help adapters, like for example us and HCore that use VNet as a port.
Well, one thing 419 does do is that it lets existing PON ports, adapters such as us, to work both on multiple ONUs on a single PON and ONUs across multiple PONs. So, and it does not break any VNet code, because if VNet doesn't support multi-PON yet, then a solution for that would be nice to have. But 419 does not break that because it's already broken on XPON, if I understand you correctly.
This is Nirania. Actually, the VNet solution that we submitted through 470, that do support the multiple PONs.
But they're not able to use it because it's a lot of change for them right now. So they're going to use PON. And what Chip is asking is, if they do take in 419, is it going to impact the long-term solution at all? That's the question. Not investigate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think before we take the 419, it would be better to investigate both putting together and then find it out whether it's impacting or not.
Yeah, well, it's a 2-file change, so it should be pretty easy to test.
Yeah, but not now, right?
Yeah, we are in the labs too, Chip. So I think we're trying to find out what would be the best time to do.
We've been waiting for 3 weeks on this, and I brought the issue up over a month ago. I mean, the continuous delays are getting a bit frustrating, and it's sapping time for me focusing on our deployments.
Yeah, I understand, but we're trying to understand what the problem is first before we can see if there's a solution, right? I mean, the biggest concern for us was that first of all, we didn't understand why there was a problem, because we haven't had that problem, obviously, because we've been using VNet, and of course there is a problem that we want to solve, and we were hoping that 419 would solve it for VNet, which is the multiple UNI case that I was talking about, but unfortunately it does not. It's a very specific case for a specific type of implementation.
It fixes all existing people who use PON ports. Because the flow rules will not come down for the default flow rules if you use the PON port method. Switching to VNet would be great if we had some good examples, but the documentation for XPON, how to use it, how to implement it, best practices does not exist.
Well, I provided.
Go ahead. Sorry, Chip. The fix for 419 relies on the device VLAN field being properly populated, correct?
Yes.
Right. So even if we use PON port,
that can be done. Yeah, the ONU can provide that parameter when it starts up, and before the test I'm about to do is right before we create the logical device. You know, while an ONU comes up, he can set the VLAN port just like the reachability status or serial number and such.
Right, but that needs to be coordinated with the information in SADIS, right? Somehow, and if the ONUs come up in different orders, how is that coordination done by the ONU independently?
Right now, I'm just using the logical port number, just like OLTs do when they do it. So it's a similar method. And to get that port number, I guess the VENet way is to parse the name of the VENet field,
right,
and use that as the, I guess, logical port number, perhaps. I can hopefully we'll upload our changes for our ONU today if this all works, but I can provide the snippets of what changed in the ONU because and put that out on VOLTHA Discuss, because that might help other adapters if they just want to start moving to VENet capabilities or XPON in general.
So is that your ONU adapter that's providing it, or the ONU?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, the ONU adapter provides it. It's the one that creates logical port. So
how do you get that mapping? Is that like hard coded right now, or?
No, the logical port number for OpenFlow comes from the VENet name field, as was suggested in that one email, that
right.
message number 24 I sent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that's the way you're providing a UniPort number.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I extract that for logical port number, and I also set device.vlan to that value and do an update device status.
Okay. So you're using a range between, I guess, within the VLAN ID 12-bit range and populating it and using the same one. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think we'll have more than, with 128 by 16, you're only at 2K of unis.
Yeah, for GPON, for if you move to NGPON to where your logical device could span multiple.
And hopefully, once we and other people can do native CAT, you can get rid of CVLANs at all completely.
Mm-hmm. So you're planning to upload those changes for people to take a look and comment? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they'll actually be in our ONU adapter, but what I can do is, our ONU adapter is similar to what Broadcom ONU and a few other ONUs do. During the activate method, they set up the logical port number and all, but they don't implement. Nobody else implements the XPON. So I could do a before and after, like this is how we did it, which I think most other ONUs currently do it that way. And for XPON, if you need a CV plan, here's a way to also do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll keep it pretty simple. And of course, you also set up the logical port number during re-enable and reboot. So I'll not include those changes. I'll just include the main activate method, before and after, so that people see what happens.
Well, I guess I'll leave it up to Steve and others that are using the PON port to comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient for now. We're on the verge of just enabling native packet in out as well. So this will become much less of an issue. And in fact, I think we would move to the default VLAN, I think, as I think you suggested, maybe on Tuesday, Srisha, where every ONU would just use a default VLAN until it's authenticated.
Yeah, I think that sounds like something that would solve most problems, but looks like there's two, from what I'm understanding, there are two problems here. One is the default VLAN, which I completely agree. There are lots of different variants of ONUs. I know I've seen them too, and I think we would need that. But the second problem that Chip has brought up is also the fact that he would need that to be unique, at least right now, until they have some more changes implemented. So I think that's why he's using that solution of sending it over as the same. Yeah, I understand.
We can probably keep it unique on a PON, since that you pretty much have to be just unique on a PON to match up to the VLAN scheme at AT&T. So we can probably live with that and just be careful on how we provide ONU IDs and activate ports.
So for the first problem then about the unique CVLAN, do you want us to investigate that, maybe populate provide a way or a solution to maybe have a per VOLTHA core sort of a configuration for, I don't know, for a lack of term, like a bootstrap or a trap VLAN, and have that populated as soon as the ONU device is created? Do you want us to investigate that?
Well, why don't we get some feedback from other ONU people of whether they need or can just live with the temporary having the ONU set the CVLAN, because I'm not sure how other people's hardware and their capabilities work. And I wouldn't want to change something in the core that can be just done on a per ONU basis if you need it.
That I seem like that's more of a common behavior than a per ONU behavior, right? So I don't see the problem with that. Yeah.
I think it would be nice for the core to specify something if it's able to be configurable somehow.
Yeah, we can investigate.
As it is, it's those default flow rules come down with a VLAN of 0, right?
Right.
It would be nice to fix that issue.
Right.
Yeah,
with a configurable parameter.
Right. I think we can take a look at that. We can provide some options and see which ones the TST likes. Ideally, I think since those flow rules are coming down from owners should be the one that you make it configurable and it uses the right VLANs, right? Yes. So we have to look at both of them, or if in the interim there is an easier solution to do it in the VOLTHA core, because looks like there's already support in the VOLTHA core to use that device.VLAN if it was populated. Maybe we can play some tricks in the interim until owners is fully able to do that. So we can investigate that and provide maybe some points to think about or some solutions, and if you like it.
Is there anybody from Tibet on the call? I'd be interested to get their input as well. Doesn't look like it.
But I can try to get a hold of JC or somebody today just to see if they've kept up with this and see if they have any issues. So I'll try to give him a ring this afternoon.
Yeah.
But we can live with maybe trying to put it in the core, because obviously since we control our ONU, we can, if the workaround that I'm talking about works, then we can use that until we have a common method that everyone doesn't have to worry about. messing with. So.
Okay, so what are the conclusions? So you will go ahead and try to see if your workaround will maybe help Steve as well, and
Yeah.
parallel, we will try to investigate a way to populate a default bootstrap or a trap VLAN in the that zero VLANs come in from owners.
I'll publish my results today. It'll probably be towards the end of the day, but I'll try to get the message out. I'll put it on VOLTHA Discuss just so that maybe people that are on the call might see it and ask questions if they need to.
Okay, so is that all we wanted to discuss on today's call? Because there were like a couple of more topics, at least in your document, Chip. So I don't know if you wanted to address any.
Well, getting 419 admitted would be nice, but whatever we can get as feedback there, since it's been a long ways. But I guess as we go forward, if we end up having to specify a CVLAN value either as a default on a per ONU basis or PON basis or whatever, we need to probably just understand, figure out what gang model we might want to use. We don't have to come up with one right now. Just we understand.
Right. Ideally, I know the VLANs, we have to probably look at Yang model. I'm not saying no, but in the VOLTHA world, VLANs are all considered open flow, right? So basically, we'd have to look at how owners can use a VLAN in the default flow rules, which would basically, trump the ONU device.cvlan value. So it produce, you won't need it anymore because the VLAN value would be populated in the default flow rules. So that's one way to solve it, because VOLTHA uses open flow. It doesn't really use sub-interfaces and Yang model for sub-interfaces. If it does, then yes, we could use that as well, but that means you have to open it up for the entire forwarding in the QoS model, which is not supported today. So since VOLTHA follows the open flow way, one approach would be to look at how the owner's apps, either the OLT app or I don't know, AAA app or the status app, one of them could have what the default VLAN should be, and then modify the apps to send the flow rules with the VLAN as opposed to just 0. I think that would be a little bit more, I would say, better solution as opposed to hard coding a default VLAN in the code. But it might take more time because we might need to also discuss with the app stakeholders. So in the interim, if you want to, since there's already a provision for device.cvlan in the ONU device, if you want to do something for us to populate it as a part of the XCON when the ONU device is created, we could look at populating a default CVLAN there, which would be just one. We can't do it one per ONU. We can at least do one for all the ONUs. Okay. That's something to look at.
Okay.
So Risha, just so I understand that from an owner's perspective, it's not it's not provisioning the service VLAN information, because we don't want to be forwarding data until it's authenticated, right? Is there any way that you could use the original service VLAN information but drop those packets?
Yes, we have actually been asking. In fact, when the initial, I guess I should say, developers of this were still around, there was a question I asked them why they want to go with sending all these flow rules, because it also poses a scale problem, right? So we were asking, why wouldn't you just do a block or just block the port or open the port for traffic once it's successfully authenticated by just using another higher priority rule that is added or removed.
Right.
That they said, no, that's how our code works and we want to keep that. We don't want to change it. So, but now I'm not sure if they're open to, because things have changed since then too, right? If they're open to looking at other things, and that's something we can look at too. Do we really want to send all those flow rules? It has potential scale problem, and we have a lot of, think about VoLTE restart or things like that, right? So we could look at something like, being able to use the same subscriber VLANs, but just have another higher priority rule, which just, opens and closes the port. We have to do some investigation on that. That was just an idea that, I asked some of the
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that would essentially solve a lot of the problems. I mean, obviously there may be some other scaling issues.
Yeah, but it would still need, yes, I understand. It would still need the apps to be changed. Today, a lot of these apps sort of like default send some rules, just hard-coded rules. So we need to go make those apps more, pull this information from, I guess, status or some other, database and get them populated to the logical devices or their devices, the OpenFlow devices.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be an operation on discovery if they aren't you, right? So you go and get the
right when the ports are when the ports are visible in ONUS, yeah.
Okay.
But I guess for other actions, I guess at the very end of the document I sent out, I suggested a couple different things. I know Steve is interested in trying to get the control VLAN where it's not hard-coded all over the place and moved into either a configurable variable or at least something that can be changed. And ideally poll a lot of OLT vendors to see if or when we can go to an all-native packet in and out, get rid of the 4000 VLAN.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get rid of the 4000 VLAN, but I know that many vendors are still using it.
Yeah, and I mean, I can go ahead and put a couple JIRAs in related to that. One, making it configurable, and two, to track, and talk to different vendors and get a rough ballpark, because pre 2.0 would be a nice time to get rid of it. Yes. And in the document I send out with the changes for the device VLAN and the UNI, I'll go ahead and mention that we're using the VENet's name to create the open port flow number, and I guess that's a general convention. We don't want a separate field to set that, do we? We just want to derive it.
The general convention would be to move some of this logic into the core, so that way, when the device management is available in the core, then that takes care of, adding to the logical device. I mean, today, even the logical device is created by the adapters, which seems a little not right either, right? So the core should be responsible for that. So there's a lot of things that was done very sort of for a proof of concept and need to be changed in the VOLTHA architecture. Probably 2.0 would be a good place to park some of these items and look at them.
Okay, well, I'll try to mention all that, and because I think the main thing behind core development is there's only one of everything, and it never is turned off.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would disagree. So, okay, but if it's okay, I'll create those JIRAs as for future tracking, and I'll put that information.
Okay, there was one more point in your, when I read through your document, and there was one more point that you mentioned, although it was not related to this, about the, what was that, I think?
NNIs?
NNIs, we have to look at that too. Right now it's all one, hard-coded to one, right? You can't support more than one NNI. No, there was an XPON related bug that you were talking about, a race condition. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought that you mentioned about a case where if you pre-provisioned the OLT without the OLT being enabled, then you said that there was an issue in the port numbers being discovered, right?
That's correct. At least we've hit that on our adapter. Right,
but that's a known thing that we have already agreed that device management comes into play, because I sent the whole picture about how the entity and the hardware entity model needs to tie into XPON model. Until the hardware entity model is available and implemented in the VOLTHA core, the existing implementation expects that the ports are discovered. The existing VOLTHA implementation is based on these ports being NNI and PON ports being discovered, and XPON was just added on top of that, because at the same time we were discussing about maybe another group looking at device management that didn't materialize for 1.0. So hopefully in 2.0, when the device management comes into play, you can link the actual port that's pre-provisioned to the PON port, and then you don't have a need for that to be discovered anymore.
Is that this ticket here, Vol 476?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw you added a bug, but this is not really a bug because it was intended to work that way. That's kind of the design intent until device management is in play. So once we have the entity model implemented, then that would link the actual PON port to the XPON PON port, and then you won't have that. You don't need to discover it. Right now, there's no way for the device, because the device ports are discovered today in the VOLTHA code. So unless you've discovered the PON port, you can't really, find out which port to use. So that's the.
Okay. Well, I consider it a bug as long as since it wasn't documented as a known issue. And that's the thing. There's not much documentation. So stumbling upon these things on how to set proper VNet on any names to make things work took quite a long time.
Yeah, there's an example configuration that was attached to the stories that.
Yeah, it's in Vol 151, but it doesn't give you in the link table portion of how to, why those are named correctly. Makes sense, but until you get into the code, you don't find out that the channel pair name needs to match the label of the PON port that you registered. That was a fairly obscure one.
Right, and it was explained in the TST meetings why we had to take that. I understand that, if we had the time, we could go ahead and document everything, but it was explained in the TST meeting why we had to use that in the absence of device management.
I missed the part about that. I understood the link table issue.
Okay, are there any other points, or that's pretty much it?
Do we have a look at the 4.9?
Sarisha, you said you're looking at how to move forward on multiple unis per ONU. Is that?
That's fine. We have been looking at it, and to be honest, we're still not successful in getting that working. So
you'll publish something on VOLTHA Discuss or something whenever there's
a solution. Yeah, hopefully.
A solution to that. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, Chip, I interrupted you.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to find out if there's an estimated time you could take a look at those the two changes in 419 to see if that gives you any, test it, see if it gives you any issues with your VNet implementation.
Who was that directed at?
I was asking if Nokia could take a look at that. I mean, the changes have been out there for weeks. And
Nokia, what? I'm sorry.
We had mentioned that there's two files in the core that relate to the flow decomposer and logical device agent that have the 419 fixes that fixes at least the any port input rule, such as IGMP uses. That's something that we need, absolutely. And I wanted, if you had an ETA when you could test, and that works at least needed for PON ports on multi-PON. And could you test that with your VNet to see if it breaks anything?
I'd have to check. I mean, we're at the labs right now, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to that anytime soon. We'll take a look at the changes to see if it will have any impact, but to test it might be difficult right now since we're all traveling and at the labs right now.
Yeah, I understand that. If you just could load it and see if data passes, that's a big thing. That takes an hour or two. I mean, I've spent hours and hours on this waiting.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, we'll try to see if we can take those changes and yeah.
Do you have an estimate of when that could be done, or at least a guess?
Maybe, I mean, this week we are still very busy trying to get all the tests run on the AT&T setups here. So we don't have, you know, anybody off site that could try it. So most of the people are here and working on the AT&T setup. We'll have to see. I can't promise. I don't want to give you a date and not, you know, live up to that. That's why I'm hesitating a little bit.
Well, okay. I guess I'll just keep bugging you then.
Okay, so I think where we stand, Chip, it looks like you are currently testing a workaround that uses your ONU adapter to provide the logical port. And then that workaround, if your testing is successful, you're planning to post related snippets from the code for others to review, and your target is to provide that by the end of day. Was that what you were expecting?
Yeah, I should be able to do it I should be able to test it in a few minutes. It's just a matter of actually down and writing it up.
Okay. And Tarisha, I think you were looking at options to populate a default or trap VLAN.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's not going to help Chip completely right now. It will help him later. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then resources permitting, due to testing going on right now and travel issues for folks, Nokia is planning to at least review, but may not be able to test those changes for VOL 419 and then provide some feedback. And are there any other actions we need to capture? I was going to send out just a some quick notes after the meeting. So I wanted to see if there's anything else I need to capture here for today. And it sounds like there's probably going to be some further discussion on VOLTA Discuss. And then as we close in on things, if you could put updates in JIRA as well, that would be great to help our Scrum meetings.
Okay.
Anything else for today?
Sorry, I joined late.
Oh, hi, Sean. Or any questions you need or comments you need from Sean before we close for today?
Not from my side. So.
No.
Okay. I'll go back to listen to the recording. This has been recorded, right? So yes. Okay. Just a quick. I sent out an email regarding to the VOLTA 2.0 kickoff meeting for Friday on the October 20 something, 27th, I believe. I think that right now that plan is on hold. So we're potentially just going to have a kickoff meeting during the TST call. So if you already start making travel plans, I apologize for that, but it's hard to organize things when we're so far away from where the location site is. So, but stay tuned on the kickoff meeting. But if your company or organization has any presence during the broadband world forum, let's keep very close contact. Something may come up during the after hour, so that is something we are looking at right now. So the plan is have a technical lockdown sometime in November. So
Sean, are you officially saying that we will not be having a 1 or 2 day lockdown during the BB World Forum, so I can release our resources we reserved?
I will give you the answer by the end of this week. How's that?
It's not a huge hurry. I just want to follow up with our people, if not leaving.
I understand that, right? Because potentially I still want you to host a party, have all of champagne lying around.
That's right. We have it ready. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think it sounds like we are done for today. So thanks for the update, Sean. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and post the recording on YouTube. And then Chip, once you have the results from your testing, please get the update to everyone, and we will see how we proceed. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending the additional session to go into these issues. And I will go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.